I'm Ashley, 27F, and I've been married to Ryan, 29M, for 5 years. We have a 3-year-old son, Ethan. Ryan is currently serving a 4-year sentence in prison, with 2 years left on his term. He was convicted of aggravated assault after severely injuring a co-worker during a fight at their workplace. I've been contemplating leaving Ryan for a while now, but I wanted to wait for the right moment. I know how volatile he can be, and I didn't want my decision to negatively impact Ethan. To give some background, Ryan and I met when I was 19 and he was 21. We were both working part-time at a local diner while attending community college. Ryan was charming and confident, always ready with a joke or a compliment. He swept me off my feet, and within a few months, we were inseparable. Looking back, I can see the red flags that I missed or chose to ignore. Ryan had a quick temper, often getting into arguments with customers or coworkers over minor issues. But he was always gentle with me, and I convinced myself that his anger was just passion. I thought I could be the one to help him channel that energy into something positive. We dated for 3 years before getting married. During that time, Ryan dropped out of college to work full-time at a construction company. He said he preferred working with his hands and that college wasn't for him. I supported his decision, even though it meant putting my own education on hold to help support us financially. Our wedding was small but beautiful. Ryan's parents, Linda, 55F, and George, 58M, helped us plan and pay for everything. They welcomed me into the family with open arms, and I felt like I had finally found the loving, supportive family I'd always longed for. My own parents had divorced when I was young, and I'd spent most of my childhood bouncing between their homes, never feeling fully settled. The first year of our marriage was blissful. We moved into a small apartment, worked hard, and dreamed about our future. When I got pregnant with Ethan, we were overjoyed. Ryan took on extra shifts at work to save money for the baby, and I thought things were perfect. But after Ethan was born, things started to change. Ryan became more irritable, complaining about the baby's crying and the lack of sleep. He started staying out late with his coworkers, coming home smelling of beer and cigarettes. When I confronted him about it, he'd apologize and promise to do better, but the pattern continued. As Ethan grew into a toddler, Ryan's temper became more apparent. He'd yell at Ethan for spilling his juice or making too much noise while playing. I found myself constantly trying to keep the peace, walking on eggshells to avoid setting Ryan off. The incident that led to Ryan's arrest happened when Ethan was 2. Ryan came home from work in a foul mood, complaining about a new guy on the job who was showing him up. He ranted about how the foreman was favoring this new worker, giving him the better assignments. I tried to calm him down, but he just got angrier. The next day, Ryan called me from the police station. He'd gotten into a fight with a coworker he'd been complaining about, beating the man so severely that he was hospitalized. Ryan claimed it was self-defense, that the other guy had provoked him, but the evidence suggested otherwise. The trial was a nightmare. I sat in the courtroom every day, listening to witnesses describe Ryan as a ticking time bomb, always looking for a fight. His coworkers testified about other incidents of aggression that I'd never known about. Through it all, Ryan maintained his innocence, insisting he was being set up. When the guilty verdict came down, I was shocked but also relieved. Part of me had known all along that Ryan was capable of this level of violence, but I'd been in denial. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison, with the possibility of early release for good behavior. The first few months after Ryan went to prison were incredibly difficult. I was suddenly a single parent, trying to juggle work and caring for Ethan while also dealing with the emotional fallout of everything that had happened. Linda and George were a huge help during this time, often babysitting Ethan or bringing us groceries when money was tight. Ryan called me constantly from prison, alternating between apologies and demands. He wanted me to visit more often, to put more money in his commissary account, to write to the judge asking for leniency. I felt torn between my loyalty to my husband and my growing realization that our relationship wasn't healthy. It was during one of these phone calls that I first started seriously considering divorce. Ryan was ranting about how unfair his sentence was, how everyone was against him. When I gently suggested that maybe he could use this time to work on his anger issues, he exploded, accusing me of not supporting him and threatening to make my life miserable if I ever left him. That conversation was a wake-up call. I realized that I'd been making excuses for Ryan's behavior for years, and that I couldn't continue to expose Ethan to this toxic environment. But I was scared. Ryan had always been the breadwinner, and I wasn't sure how I'd manage on my own. Plus, I worried about what he might do when he got out if I left him. I confided in Linda about my fears, pouring out all my worries and doubts. She listened sympathetically and offered words of encouragement. She even hinted that she'd had similar struggles with George in the past, though she didn't go into detail. I felt relieved to have someone to talk to who understood what I was going through. Over the next few months, I started making small changes. I went back to school part-time, taking online classes to finish my degree. I cut back on the money I was sending to Ryan's commissary account, telling him I needed to prioritize Ethan's needs. I also started putting aside a little money each month, building up a secret savings account just in case. Finally, last month, I worked up the courage to visit Ryan and tell him I wanted a divorce. I was terrified, but I knew it had to be done. His reaction was even worse than I'd feared. He yelled so loudly that a guard had to intervene, threatening to end the visit early. As I left, Ryan shouted that he'd never let me take Ethan away from him. Shaken but determined, I hired a lawyer the next day to start the divorce proceedings and file for full custody of Ethan. Given Ryan's history of violence and his current incarceration, I thought it would be straightforward. However, things took an unexpected turn when I received notice that Linda and George had filed for emergency custody of Ethan. I was blindsided. The custody petition used private conversations I'd had with Linda as evidence, claiming I was mentally unfit to care for Ethan. They cited my struggles with depression and the financial difficulties I'd confided in her about. I felt betrayed and scared. When I confronted Linda, she claimed she didn't know George had taken screenshots of our conversations or that he was filing for custody. She said George did it without her knowledge after Ryan had called them, ranting about how I was trying to keep Ethan from him. Linda sounded genuinely upset, but I don't know if I can trust her anymore. Now, I'm frantically preparing for the custody hearing next week. My lawyer is helping me gather evidence to prove I'm a good mother. We have character witnesses lined up, including Ethan's preschool teacher and our neighbor who often babysits. I'm also collecting financial records to show that I can provide for Ethan on my own. My lawyer suggested I get a psychological evaluation to counter George and Linda's claims about my mental state. I'm nervous about it, but I know it's necessary. I've been trying to stay strong for Ethan, but there are moments when I feel overwhelmed by everything that's happening. Part of me wonders if I'm doing the right thing. Am I wrong for wanting to keep Ethan away from his father and grandparents? I don't want him to grow up thinking it's okay to solve problems with violence, but I also don't want to deprive him of his family. I could really use some advice or words of encouragement right now. How do I protect Ethan while also ensuring he has a relationship with his family? Am I making the right decision by cutting Ryan out of our lives? I feel like I'm in over my head, and I'm terrified of losing my son. Update 1, it's been 2 months since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your words gave me strength during one of the most challenging periods of my life. The custody hearing was intense and emotionally draining. My lawyer came prepared with a solid defense, presenting evidence of my financial stability, including details about my recent promotion at work. I'd been putting in extra hours and taking on additional responsibilities, which had paid off with a significant raise. This promotion was a turning point for me, boosting my confidence and proving that I could provide for Ethan on my own. We also had several character witnesses testify about my parenting skills and devotion to Ethan. His preschool teacher spoke about how engaged I was in Ethan's education, always attending parent-teacher meetings and volunteering for school events. Our neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, testified about the time she'd babysat Ethan, describing him as a happy, well-adjusted child who clearly adored me. The most crucial piece of evidence was my recent psychological evaluation. The psychologist's report stated that while I had experienced situational depression due to the stress of my circumstances, I was mentally fit to care for Ethan. This effectively countered George and Linda's claims about my mental state. During the hearing, I learned more about the events leading up to George and Linda's custody petition. Apparently, Ryan had been calling them regularly from prison, painting a picture of me as an unfit mother who was trying to turn Ethan against him. He'd convinced George that the only way to ensure he'd have a relationship with Ethan after his release was to get custody now. George's lawyer tried to use my old text messages to Linda against me, quoting messages where I'd expressed feeling overwhelmed or frustrated. But my lawyer pointed out that these messages were from a particularly difficult time and didn't reflect my current mental state or ability to care for Ethan. One of the most surprising moments of the hearing came when Linda took the stand. Instead of supporting George's petition, she testified on my behalf. She described me as a loving, dedicated mother who had always put Ethan's needs first, even in the face of tremendous stress. She also revealed that George had filed a custody petition without her full knowledge or consent, and that she no longer supported it. Linda's testimony visibly shocked George, and I could see the anger on his face. It was clear that there was trouble in their relationship, mirroring the issues I'd had with Ryan. After 2 grueling days of testimony, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted full custody of Ethan, with Ryan's parental rights temporarily suspended pending further review upon his release from prison. The judge also issued a restraining order against George, preventing him from contacting me or Ethan. The relief I felt when the judge announced her decision was indescribable. I broke down in tears right there in the courtroom, all the stress and fear of the past months finally releasing. After the hearing, Linda approached me. She was crying too, apologizing profusely for her part in this mess. She revealed that she had left George and filed for divorce. According to her, George had become increasingly controlling and manipulative over the years, much like Ryan. She said she couldn't stand by and watch him try to take Ethan away from me. Linda's revelation brought back memories of conversations we'd had years ago, where she'd hinted at problems in her marriage. I realized now that she had been reaching out for help in her own way, just as I had been. I was hesitant to trust Linda at first, but her actions during the hearing and her genuine remorse made me reconsider. She asked if she could still be part of Ethan's life, promising to respect my boundaries and decisions. I told her I needed time to think about it, but I was open to the possibility. As for Ryan, I received a letter from him a week after the hearing. His words were filled with anger and threats, saying he would make my life hell when he gets out. The letter scared me, but it also reinforced that I had made the right decision in leaving him. I gave the letter to my lawyer, who's looking into getting a restraining order against Ryan as well. In the wake of the hearing, I've started making plans for our future. I've begun looking for a new place to live, preferably in a different town. I want a fresh start for Ethan and me, away from all this drama and painful memories. I'm considering changing our phone numbers and limiting our social media presence to make it harder for Ryan or George to find us when Ryan is released. This whole experience has been eye-opening. I've realized how strong I can be when it comes to protecting my son. I'm no longer the naive girl who thought she could change an angry man with love. I'm a mother who will do whatever it takes to give her child a safe, happy life. I still have moments of doubt, wondering if I'm doing the right thing by keeping Ethan away from his father. But then I remember Ryan's threats and violent behavior, and I know I'm making the best decision for my son's safety and well-being. As I look toward the future, I'm filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. I know the road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my life. I'm committed to creating a peaceful, loving home for Ethan, free from the fear and tension that marked the early years of his life. I'm grateful for the support I've received, both from the people in my life and from this community. Your encouragement has meant more than you know. I'll continue to update as things progress, and I welcome any advice as I navigate this new chapter of our lives. Update 2. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that things have settled into a new normal for Ethan and me. We moved to a new town about an hour away from our old home, far enough to feel like a fresh start but close enough that I can still commute to my job. We're living in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood. It's smaller than our old place, but it feels more like home than anywhere we've lived before. Ethan has his own room, which he loves. We spent a weekend painting it blue, his favorite color, and decorating it with space-themed stickers. Seeing him so happy and settled in our new place reassures me that I made the right decision. Ethan has adjusted well to his new preschool. At first, I was worried about how he'd handle the change, but he's thrived. His teachers say he's outgoing and I'm always eager to learn. It warms my heart to see him making new friends and coming home excited to tell me about his day. I've been seeing a counselor to work through my feelings about everything that's happened. It's been incredibly helpful to have someone to talk to who can offer an objective perspective. We've been working on setting healthy boundaries and recognizing red flags in relationships. I'm learning to trust my instincts and stand up for myself and Ethan. One of the biggest challenges has been figuring out how to handle Linda's role in our lives. After much consideration and several long conversations with my counselor, I decided to allow Linda limited, supervised visits with Ethan. We started with short visits at a local park, with me present the entire time. To my relief, Linda has been respectful of my boundaries and seems genuinely interested in being a positive influence in Ethan's life. She brings him small gifts, usually books or art supplies, and spends their time together reading to him or doing crafts. It's clear that she's making an effort to rebuild our trust. During one of these visits, Linda opened up to me about her own struggles. She shared that she had started attending support groups for people who have been in abusive relationships. It was eye-opening to hear her perspective and to realize how similar our experiences had been. Her journey has inspired me to consider joining a support group myself. As for Ryan, he tried to contest the custody ruling from prison, but his appeal was denied. My lawyer successfully obtained a restraining order against him, which will go into effect upon his release. It's a relief to know we'll have some legal protection when he gets out. I've been struggling with how to explain Ryan's absence to Ethan. For now, I've told him that Daddy made some mistakes and had to go away for a while to learn how to be better. I know I'll need to have a more detailed conversation with him when he's older, but for now, this seems to satisfy his curiosity. My counselor has been helping me plan for future conversations as Ethan grows and asks more questions. Work has been a positive constant through all of this. My boss has been understanding about my situation and has allowed me some flexibility with my schedule for counseling appointments and Ethan's school events. I'm grateful for the stability my job provides, both financially and emotionally. I've also started reconnecting with old friends and making new ones in our new town. There's a single moms group that meets at a local coffee shop once a month, and I've been attending regularly. It's been refreshing to build relationships that aren't overshadowed by Ryan's presence or influence. These women understand what I'm going through in a way that even my oldest friends can't. Overall, I feel like we're on a good path. There are still challenging days, times when I doubt myself or worry about the future, but I'm proud of how far we've come. Ethan is happy and thriving, and that's what matters most to me. As we approach the halfway point of Ryan's sentence, I find myself thinking more about what will happen when he's released. I know we have the restraining order in place, but it still scares me to think about him being free. I'm trying to focus on the present and not let those worries consume me, but it's not always easy. For now, I'm concentrating on building a stable, happy life for Ethan and myself. We're making new memories in our new home, creating routines that don't revolve around fear or tension. It's a work in progress, but every day feels like a step in the right direction. Update 3. It's been a year since my last update, and I can hardly believe how much has changed. Ethan just turned 5, and he's growing into such a kind, curious little boy. He started kindergarten this fall and absolutely loves it. His teacher says he's one of the most enthusiastic students she's ever had, always eager to learn and help others. The biggest news is that Ryan was released from prison 3 months ago. Despite the restraining order, he tried to contact me through mutual acquaintances. The first time it happened, I was terrified. I immediately reported it to my lawyer and the police. They've been monitoring the situation closely, and so far, Ryan hasn't made any direct attempts to approach us. Linda has become an unexpected ally during this time. She's been helping me document any attempts Ryan makes to circumvent the restraining order. Her support has been invaluable, and I'm grateful that she's chosen to prioritize Ethan's well-being over enabling Ryan's behavior. Our relationship has continued to improve over the past year. Linda has been attending therapy regularly, working through her own issues related to her marriage to George. She's apologized numerous times for her role in the custody battle, and her actions have shown that she's committed to making amends. She's become a positive presence in Ethan's life, often taking him on outings to the zoo or the children's museum. I've been promoted at work, which has given us more financial stability. My new position comes with more responsibility, but also more flexibility, which has been great for balancing work and Ethan's needs. I've even started putting money aside for Ethan's future education. It feels good to be able to provide for him on my own and to be planning for his future. Ethan has been asking more questions about Ryan lately. As he's gotten older and started school, he's become more aware that his family situation is different from some of his classmates. I've been as honest as I can be without burdening him with adult problems. I told him that his dad made some big mistakes that hurt people, and that's why he can't be with us right now. I've also reassured him that none of this is his fault. These conversations are never easy, but I'm grateful for the advice from my counselor on how to handle them. We've role-played different scenarios, which has helped me feel more prepared when Ethan brings up the subject. I've continued seeing my counselor, and she's been helping me work through my feelings about Ryan's release. There's still a part of me that feels guilty about keeping Ethan away from his father, but I know I'm doing what's best for his safety and well-being. We've been working on strategies to manage my anxiety about Ryan potentially showing up in our lives again. Looking back on the past few years, I'm amazed at how much I've grown. I'm no longer the woman who made excuses for her husband's violent behavior. I'm stronger, more independent, and focused on creating a positive future for Ethan and myself. There are still challenges ahead, especially with Ryan being out of prison. But I feel prepared to face whatever comes our way. Ethan and I have built a good life together, and I'm determined to protect it. I've started thinking about dating again, though I'm not sure I'm ready to take that step yet. My friends have been encouraging me to put myself out there, but I want to make sure I'm in a good place emotionally before I consider bringing someone new into our lives. For now, I'm focusing on being the best mother I can be to Ethan and continuing to heal and grow as a person. I'm grateful for the support and advice I've received from this community. Your words have been a source of strength and encouragement throughout this journey. I'll continue to update as things progress, and I welcome any advice as we navigate this new chapter of our lives.